Does the fact that Jews in Israel today speak Hebrew a fulfillment of Bible prophecy? The last couple of weeks I've been preparing for a debate on the question as to whether or not modern day Israel's fulfillment of Bible prophecy. I have essentially done all this. I'm doing this early before the debate, but this will play afterwards. And I've been looking at lots of different passages on the claim that these particular passages have something to do with the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, in particular the fact that Israel is a nation again. And one of the arguments that has come up is this particular statement. I want you to listen to this. This person said, "You can walk to the city in Israel today, in any city in Israel today, and you will hear Israelis who come from 100 different nationalities speaking one language. In Zephaniah 3:9, the Lord had predicted, 'I will return unto you a pure language.' 100 years ago, when Ezra ben Yehuda began to revive Hebrew, people thought he was crazy, but now you can walk through those cities in Israel where you hear them speak one language, and it's Hebrew. You don't hear people today speak Babylonian. You don't hear them speak Assyrian. You hear them speak Hebrew. So that's a dramatic example of fulfilled prophecy." Well, is that the case? The fact that the Jews today in Israel speak Hebrew. And I suspect, I don't know what kind of argument you bring when you go to Greece and you hear people in Greece speaking Greek. And Greek was overtaken by the Romans prior to the time of Christ. And so you would have thought their particular language would have been gone. In reality, you find that the New Testament is written in Greek. So the preservation of language isn't anything unique just to the Jews. But the thing that's important here is this particular prophecy is being used in a way to say it's being fulfilled based upon a particular text from the Old Testament, and that is Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9. When you go back and look at Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9, you find a couple of things. You will find, first of all, that most of this is based upon two particular translations, the King James and as well as the Living Bible. Living Bible even distorts this passage even more. But this particular interpretation comes from the King James translation. And again, I'm not slamming the King James. It's just not a very good translation of that particular passage. And even if the translation is actually correct, the context shows that something completely different. The Living Bible translation has, "At that time I will change the speech of my returning people," that is Israel, "to pure Hebrew so that all can worship the Lord together." Now, pure Hebrew is not anywhere in the text. And you will also note here that if you go to the Living Bible, you will find that there is a note. It says, literally, this is the way the text reads, "I will change the speech of the peoples to a pure speech." And O. Palmer Robertson comments, he says, when you compare the translation of the Living Bible, which has been used to explain the revival of modern Hebrew in Palestine today as a fulfillment of Zephaniah's prophecy concerning a purified lip. That is the literal translation, a purified lip. And oftentimes in Hebrew you will find that lip is used for language. If you go back to the Tower of Babel, they all had the same lip. But lip in Scripture oftentimes means more than simply language. It means confession. They express a belief system. The people at the time of the Tower of Babel, it wasn't just that they were all speaking the same language, it's that they had the same profession. They were professing the same worldview. And that's probably more of what is going on during the time of the Tower of Babel. And this is probably the way lip is being used here in Zephaniah 3:9. Now, The Living Bible also has returning people, and this is said to be Israel returning back to their land. But again, that's an interpretation, not a translation. The contextual subject is the peoples, not the returning peoples, but the peoples. And that particular word simply, generically means people groups. Abram was called Abraham because he was the father of many peoples. And the same Hebrew word is being used there. And that it was the nations surrounding Israel that are being described here. And that is from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 10. So far we've seen, first of all, the translation isn't correct. Second of all, what's being talked about here isn't just simply a language that's being discussed, but you're dealing with a profession, a new profession that's taking place here. And then the context isn't Israel at this point. The context is the peoples, the nations surrounding Israel. And so I went and I got two commentaries that are written by dispensationalists. And so, if this were truly a passage that they thought referred to a revived language, a pure use of Hebrew during the time when Israel becomes a nation again sometime in the future, I think they would have taken the opportunity to do so. So here's something by Paul Fink in the Liberty Bible Commentary, the Old Testament edition of that. And he writes, "The people in view are the remnant of the Gentiles who survived God's judgment because of their conversion. Jehovah will give them a pure language so that they can call upon the true Jehovah." And there you see this idea of a profession. He will purify their speech, so to speak. They will no longer give oath. They will no longer give allegiance to their false gods and their idols, but they will give allegiance to God. Their lip will now speak in profession of the true God. And we see a greater fulfillment of this in the book of Acts, and of course in the Catholic epistles, the universal epistles that we find in the New Testament, where the gospel goes to the Gentiles, and they begin to acknowledge that the God of the Bible is the true God. Here's another comment on this, on Zephaniah, in the Bible Knowledge Commentary on the Old Testament by John Hanna, and Dr. Hanna taught at Dallas Theological Seminary. Listen to his comments. Zephaniah predicted that the nations will be renewed both morally, Zephaniah 3:9, and spiritually, Zephaniah 3:10. The purifying of the lips of the peoples does not mean they will speak a new language, as the King James seems to imply by its translation, a pure language. Instead, it means the renewal of once defiled speech. One's lips represent what he says, the words spoken by his lips, which in turn reflects his inner life, Isaiah chapter 6, verses 5 through 7. As a result, the nations, turning to reverential trust in God, will call on the name of the Lord and will evidence their dependence on Him by their united service. That is, when it uses this phrase, shoulder to shoulders. So what you will see here is Gentiles and Jews making a profession together. And I think you can begin to see a lot of this when you look at the book of Esther. The book of Esther talks about how many Gentiles began to embrace the religion of Judaism. And by the way, Ethiopia is mentioned in there. And you also say in the book of Daniel, where you see Nebuchadnezzar repenting and coming to faith in Jehovah. And of course, you see a greater fulfillment of that in the New Testament. So Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9 has nothing to do with modern day Israel, has to do with the Gentile nations in the Old Testament period, probably post-exile, who embraced Jehovah as their Messiah, if you will. And there you see the fuller expression of that in the New Testament.
American Vision is proud to present this year's Worldview Super Conference, July 21st through 24th at North Metro Church, Marietta, Georgia. For more information, visit conference.americanvision.org. That's conference.americanvision.org.